It was supposed to be an ordinary Sunday, one of those rare days when the air was crisp and the breeze seemed to carry away all the worries of the world. My husband, Daniel, was fixing a cabinet in the kitchen while I curled up on the couch, scrolling through my phone. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the house, and for once, everything felt peaceful. The windows were open, letting in the cool air, and everything about the day seemed calm. Then, without warning, someone began pounding on the front door. Not the usual polite knock, but a full-on pounding. Daniel and I exchanged a glance, confused. No one ever showed up unannounced. I set my phone down, got up, and made my way to the door. As I reached for the handle, the door was suddenly flung open with a violent crash. It was Danielle, my husband's sister, her face contorted with rage. Her wide eyes, wild with emotion, made her look almost unrecognizable. Her chest was heaving as if she'd run the entire way here. She stormed into the house, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You," she spat. "You stole him from me." I blinked, taken aback. Daniel stepped out of the kitchen, his frown deepening. "Danielle, what the hell?" he asked, voiceless of confusion. But Danielle wasn't looking at him. She was staring at me with such intensity that I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "You don't deserve him," she hissed. "He was mine. He was always supposed to be mine, and you ruined everything." A laugh escaped my lips, though it was more out of disbelief than anything else. "Danielle," I said, trying to break the tension, "he's your brother." But she wasn't listening. She was breathing erratically now, her face twisted in a way I couldn't even describe. It was like watching someone unravel right before my eyes. Danielle shook her head violently, her tangled hair whipping around her face as if she could physically shake off the reality of the situation. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice low and hollow. "We were meant to be together. It was always supposed to be us." My stomach twisted. I exchanged a glance with Daniel, and he took another cautious step toward her, his voice now tight with concern. "What the hell are you talking about?" he demanded. Danielle's breathing became even more erratic, and her hands reached up to grip her scalp, almost as if she was trying to stop herself from falling apart. Then, with a breathy laugh that sounded almost broken, she said, "You'll see. You'll both see." It was then that I noticed the phone in her hand. Before I could even think, Danielle dropped it. The screen landed face up on the floor, still on. Something about the sight of it made my stomach turn. I didn't think twice. I reached down and grabbed the phone. It felt cold in my hands, too cold, almost like it wasn't supposed to be in my hands. I hesitated for a moment before scrolling through the messages, my heart pounding in my chest. The first message was from a contact named My Forever Love. My mind raced, trying to piece together what was happening. I couldn't stop myself from scrolling further, though I knew deep down I wasn't ready for what I might find. My stomach dropped as the messages appeared, each one more unsettling than the last. "I miss you every second." One of the messages read, "Every breath I take without you is wasted. She doesn't deserve you. She took you from me. But don't worry, my love. I'm going to fix this. Then we can finally be together again like before." I felt sick, my hands trembling as I scrolled further. Daniel's eyes locked on my face, and I knew he saw the terror in my expression. He grabbed a phone from me, his face drained of color as he scanned the screen. For a moment, he stood frozen, his mouth moving, but no words came out. I kept scrolling, unable to stop myself. The messages started years ago, innocuous at first, just normal sibling chats, nothing out of the ordinary. But as time passed, the tone of her messages shifted. Words that had once been playful and familiar began to twist into something darker. Obsession, desperation, it all came through in her texts. Then came the photos. At first, they were innocent. Pictures of Daniel and Danielle as kids, snapshots from family holidays. But then there were others, photos of Daniel at work, pictures from our wedding, candid shots of me in the yard, at the grocery store, sitting at the dining table. But what really sent a chill through me were the most recent photos. They were taken from outside our house, through windows, some of them showing me as I sipped coffee on the porch. Others showed me sleeping, vulnerable, unaware. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I could barely breathe as I got to the final message. I won't let her win. I have a plan, my love. Soon, she'll be gone, and then we'll be happy again, just like before. I dropped the phone like it had burned me, my body frozen with shock. Daniel, pale and shaking, seemed to snap out of his stupor. His hands were white-knuckled around the phone, and he turned to face Danielle, who was still standing there, watching us with an eerie, almost satisfied smile on her face. "You read them," she said softly, her voice strangely calm. "Now you know." Daniel took a deep breath, his voice trembling. "Danielle," he said slowly, "what the hell is this?" She tilted her head, eyes softening as she looked at him like he was a stranger. "You loved me first," she whispered, her voice soft and almost dreamy, as though she were recalling some long-lost memory. "Before her, before she came and ruined everything." Daniel's face went pale, his jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. He took a step back, shaking his head in disbelief. "No," he said, his voice cracking. "Danielle, we were kids. You were my sister. That's all we ever were." Danielle's laugh rang out, high-pitched and broken, like a sound from a nightmare. "No," she murmured, her eyes wide with delusion. "That's just what they told you. But you know the truth, don't you?" Her smile widened, growing unsettlingly knowing. "You loved me first." The room felt like it was closing in on me. I could barely breathe, my mind spinning as I tried to make sense of what she was saying. My eyes locked on Daniel's, but there was no recognition left in his gaze. Just disbelief. I took a step back, my body trembling. The world around me felt like it was tilting, everything unraveling faster than I could understand. The calm Sunday had turned into something much darker, something I couldn't escape. Danielle's voice, now a whisper, floated through the air. "Once she's gone, we'll be happy again, just like before." And I couldn't help but wonder, as the floor beneath me seemed to give way, if I would ever be able to escape the nightmare that had just begun. Danielle's smile stretched wider than I had ever seen before, almost like she knew something I didn't. Her expression sent a shiver down my spine. I don't remember grabbing my phone, but somehow I dialed 911 before I even realized what I was doing. Danielle didn't resist when they came for her. She didn't fight or scream. She was eerily calm, a smile still playing on her lips, as if she had already accepted her fate. It was a smile that haunted me, one that made me feel like she understood something about the world that I couldn't grasp. I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew something I didn't. The real nightmare, however, began once she was gone. The police came to search her apartment, and what they uncovered only deepened the terror. They found hidden cameras scattered throughout the house. Cameras in the places I thought were private. Cameras I never suspected. They also found her journal, pages upon pages that chronicled her disturbing thoughts. It made my skin crawl. She had been watching me sleep. The thought alone made me sick to my stomach. But what was even worse was what I read next. The words were there, stark and chilling. "She doesn't belong in our life." I couldn't believe it. All this time, I thought I was the one who was losing control of my mind, my health. But no, she had been poisoning me. Not enough to kill me. Not immediately. But enough to weaken me, to make me sick, and to wear me down until I could no longer hold on to Daniel. Until I would be nothing but a burden. Her plan had been so clear, so twisted. She wanted me gone, slowly, so that Daniel would resent taking care of me. Then, when I was weak enough, I would disappear completely. And all the while, she thought that she could take my place, that she would win him back. Because, in her mind, he was always meant to be hers. The thought made my head spin. I couldn't sleep at all after that. I couldn't stop thinking that I was still being watched, even though she was locked away. But it was the letters that broke me, the letters that began to arrive just weeks after Danielle had been taken away. The first one came in an unmarked envelope, no return address, just a single sheet of paper. It was addressed to Daniel in perfect, looping handwriting, the kind of handwriting I recognized, because it was the same handwriting she had used in her journal. I opened it before Daniel came home, my hands trembling as I unfolded the letter. "My love, I forgive you. I know you're confused. I know she's still in the way, But I understand now. It's not your fault. They lied to you. They told you I was sick, that I was crazy. But deep down, you know the truth. I'll wait for you. I'll always wait. I'm getting better, Daniel. Soon, I'll be able to come home. And when I do, we'll fix everything. Just like before. The words were a gut punch. My stomach turned as I reread them, try and make sense of it. The most terrifying part wasn't even the letter itself. It was that there was no postmark, no stamp. It had been delivered by hand. That meant someone had helped her. I quickly checked the envelope again, hoping for some sign, some trace that it had been sent by someone else. But there was nothing, just an empty envelope with no clue of where it came from or who had delivered it. When Daniel got home, I showed him the letter. His face went pale as he read through it, his jaw tightening. He crumpled the paper in his hand, his knuckles white from gripping it so tightly. "We need to call the police?" I whispered, my voice shaky with fear. Daniel didn't answer immediately, but I could tell he was already thinking the same thing. His jaw was clenched so tightly, I thought his teeth might crack under pressure. We called the police, and when the officer arrived, he skimmed the letter inside, clearly unimpressed. "Ma'am, this could be from anyone," he said with a dismissive tone. "Could be a prank. Could be a coincidence." I snapped at him, my frustration boiling over. A coincidence? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything she's done, you think this is a coincidence? My heart was racing as I tried to make him understand how serious this was. The officer sighed again, clearly tired of dealing with us. "We checked the psychiatric facility," he said. "She hasn't left. No visitors. No calls. No access to mail. She's still under constant supervision." I could see the officer's skepticism. "She's still in there, ma'am. You have nothing to worry about." But Daniel's voice cut through the conversation, calm but intense. "Then someone on the inside is helping her." His words hung in the air like a shadow, and the officer hesitated. His gaze flickered toward the door, as if he was already regretting having to deal with this. "We'll look into it," he said, but I could tell from his tone that he didn't believe us. And that was the worst part, knowing that, despite everything we'd been through, no one was taking us seriously. We were left to wait helpless, and all I could think about was the gnawing certainty that, if Danielle ever got out, she would come back for us. The letter arrived this time taped to our front door, and when I saw it, a cold shiver ran down my spine. The handwriting was too familiar, like a ghost from a past I couldn't escape. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest, before I finally ripped the envelope open. As the paper unfolded, the words burned into my mind. "I see you. I see what she's doing to you. Daniel, you're miserable. She's made you weak. She's ruined us. But don't worry. I won't let her keep you forever. I'm coming, Daniel." I froze, the letter shaking in my hand. "Daniel," and I stood motionless in the dim light of our hallway, neither of us daring to speak. The silence felt suffocating. She wasn't supposed to have any contact with the outside world. She had been locked away, trapped behind the cold, unforgiving walls of that facility for months. How could this be happening? I looked at Daniel, and panic clawed its way up my throat. What if she gets out? I whispered, my voice trembling. He exhaled sharply, his face a mask of determination. "She won't. She can't," he said, but even his words were laced with uncertainty. The doubt in his voice was impossible to ignore, and it twisted my stomach into knots. For days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I began noticing small things that, at first, seemed harmless, but now seemed to hold a deeper meaning. The kitchen window, which I was sure I'd closed, was left ajar. Footsteps in the backyard, too heavy to be a raccoon, echoed through the night. And the sound of something scraping against our bedroom window, like nails on glass, became a regular occurrence. One evening, while watering the flower bed beneath our bedroom window, I spotted something odd. A single footprint in the soil, too big to be mine, too small to be Daniel's. My breath caught in my throat as I knelt down to examine it. There was no mistaking it. Someone had been here. Someone had been watching us. I showed Daniel, and for the first time since we'd moved in together, I saw him go completely still. His face drained of color as he stared at the print. Then he looked up at me, his eyes wide with fear. "Pack a bag," he said, his voice low and tight. "We're leaving." I felt the blood drain from my face. "No," I replied, but the weight of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. We couldn't run. We couldn't just leave. She was always one step ahead. Still, we scrambled to throw clothes into suitcases, panic spreading through me like wildfire. My heart hammered in my chest so loudly I could barely hear Daniel's voice as he dialed the police again. "They're saying she's still in the facility," Daniel muttered, frustration boiling over. "They say she hasn't left. She has no contact with anyone." But I knew the truth. Someone was helping her. Someone was watching us. Someone on the outside had access to our lives. Daniel grabbed the car keys, urgency in his movements. "Let's go," he urged, yanking open the front door. And then we froze. There, tied to the doorknob, was a single red ribbon, the exact same kind Daniel's sister used to tie around his wrist when they were kids. She'd told him it was a promise, a bond that meant they would never be apart. Now, that same ribbon was tied to our front door, swaying gently in the evening breeze. My stomach twisted into knots. I felt nauseous, like the ground was slipping out from under me. Someone had been here. Someone had touched our door, had been close enough to leave that symbol of their past on display. I glanced at Daniel, and I saw the panic in his eyes, too. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw the flicker of a light. Our neighbor's motion light on the side of the house turned on, illuminating the yard. I whipped my head around, just in time to see a shadow dart behind the fence. Someone was here, watching us. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Daniel shoved me inside the house and slammed the door shut, his hands shaking as he locked it. But then there was a loud bang from the backyard, something crashing against the fence. My heart raced as I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. My voice barely came out, a choked whisper. "Someone's in our yard." I managed to say. The police arrived fast. Too fast. Like they'd been waiting, already close by. They searched the yard, but there was no sign of whoever had been there. But what they did find made my blood run cold. A folding chair was hidden behind our shed, angled directly at our bedroom window, as though someone had been sitting there for hours, watching us. A pile of cigarette butts lay beside it, evidence of someone's presence. How long had they been watching us? How long had they been waiting for the right moment to strike? I felt like I was going to be sick. Daniel's face was a mask of rage and fear as he clenched his jaw, his voice ragged. "It's her. It has to be her." The officers shook their heads. "We've checked the facility 3 times. She's still there. No signs of her leaving." I swallowed hard, but the dread didn't subside. Then she has someone helping her. But no matter what we did, the letters kept coming. It didn't matter that we had changed the locks. It didn't matter that Daniel had bought a gun for protection. The letters kept arriving, each one more chilling than the last. Every few days, a new envelope would show up, always in a different spot, taped under the windshield wiper of Daniel's car, stuffed into our mailbox, even though there was no stamp. Once, I even found one inside the house, tucked inside a book I hadn't opened in years. Someone was watching us, and it wasn't just her. She was out there, pulling the strings, and we were caught in the web. I knew it, and no matter how hard we tried to escape, we couldn't run fast enough. It was the kind of night that never should have happened. We hadn't slept, not a single wink. The air felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in on us. It was my fault. Really, I left the window unlocked. I didn't think it would matter, but it did. And when the messages started to come through, they only grew worse, more frantic, more terrifying. I could see the fear in Daniel's eyes. He didn't understand yet. He didn't know what was happening, why it was happening, or how much worse it was going to get. But I did. I could feel it deep in my bones. And I knew. She wasn't just watching us anymore. She was getting closer, inching toward us with every passing moment. The worst letter came later that night. Daniel went out for the paper, like he always did. He was calm, as usual, taking a moment to breathe before the day fully began. But when he stepped back inside, his face was pale, drained of color. He didn't say anything. His mouth just hung open in disbelief. And then he handed me the letter. I took it from him, my hands trembling as I read the words scrawled in messy handwriting. Hi, Daniel. Guess what? I got out. I can't wait to see you. I've missed you so much. I hope she's ready. The world felt like it was crashing down around me. The blood in my veins went cold as the room seemed to spin. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. Danielle wasn't supposed to be out. She couldn't be out. I dropped the paper. My phone, my shaking hand barely gripped it, was in my hands. I dialed the police, the cold dread seeping through my fingertips. The operator answered after what felt like an eternity. 911, what's your emergency? Danielle is out. I gasped, my voice breaking. She's out. She's here. She's at my house. I was cut off, placed on hold. My mind was spiraling out of control. No, no, no. I could hear the clicking sounds in the background, the rhythmic beat that felt like a countdown. The minutes dragged on. Finally, the operator came back. Ma'am, Danielle has not been released from the facility. She's still under full supervision. This is a misunderstanding. I wanted to scream, to tell her that she was wrong, that Danielle was here, standing right in front of me. But before I could say another word, the screech of tires outside cut through the air. A car had pulled up in front of our house. The engine was loud, roaring in the quiet street, but it wasn't the car that caught my attention. It was her, Danielle. She was standing there at the edge of the driveway, her smile wide and unsettling. The setting sun cast her shadow long and dark across the pavement, making her look almost otherworldly. She was calm, too calm, not manic, not crazed, but completely serene, as though she had just returned from a long vacation. Nothing more. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Every instinct in my body screamed for me to run, to hide, to do something, but my feet were glued to the ground. Daniel was beside me, frozen in place, his fists clenched at his sides, his breath shallow and uneven. She's not supposed to be here. I whispered, panic rising in my chest. Daniel didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on her, and I could see the disbelief in them. His lips moved, but no words came out at first. Then, finally, his voice cracked. How? How the hell did you get out? Danielle just smiled, her eyes sparkling with something I couldn't quite place. You wouldn't believe how easy it was, she said, her voice light, almost playful. She took a slow step forward, her bare feet pressing against the concrete, each step deliberate, like she was savoring the moment. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine, my skin prickling with unease. Get inside, I hissed at Daniel, my voice frantic. But Danielle's laughter rang out, breaking through the tension like a glass shattering. Come on, don't be like that, she called, the tone in her voice almost teasing. I just wanted to see you. Daniel's breath hitched, and his voice was strained as he shouted, Stay the hell back. But Danielle didn't flinch. Instead, her smile grew wider, and she took another step forward. That's when I saw it, the flash of something cold, something sharp in her eyes. It wasn't just anger. It was something darker. You always ruin everything, she murmured, her voice low and menacing. Before I could react, she lunged forward, moving faster than I could follow. Instinctively, I grabbed Daniel's arm, pulling him back as Danielle's figure rushed toward us. But Daniel moved first, shoving me behind him. His body shielded mine, protecting me from what was coming. Danielle stopped mid-lunge, barely a foot away, and for a moment, I thought I saw something shift in her expression. Pain, confusion, maybe regret. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the same smile. Don't do this, Daniel said, his voice raw, almost pleading. Please, just stop. But Danielle wasn't listening. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. But I love you, she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Daniel's voice was breaking, the words spilling out at him like a flood. No, you don't, he choked. This isn't love. This is obsession. This is sick. Her face twisted as if his words were a slap. She flinched, the tears streaming down her face. But she didn't back down. Instead, her smile curled into something darker, something desperate. "I'm your brother," Daniel continued, his voice shaking. "That's all I've ever been. That's all I'll ever be." His words were like a lifeline, but they only seemed to make her more desperate. The silence that followed was deafening. Danielle stood there, trembling, her expression shifting, as if she were trying to understand what had just been said, as if the words were too much for her to process. But she didn't seem to care. Not really, because in her eyes, I could see the truth. This wasn't just a woman trying to get back what she thought she had lost. This was someone who had lost themselves entirely. And I feared that no matter how much we tried to make her understand, it would never be enough. The worst was still to come. A bitter smile. Daniel's hands clenched at his sides, his knuckles white, his entire body rigid. The silence between us was thick, heavy, suffocating. His eyes locked onto hers, and in a voice that cracked with finality, he said, "Yes, I do, and you need to hear it. I never loved you like that, Danielle. I never will." Her whole body tensed, like a rubber band stretched so tight it might snap at any second. Her eyes flickered with something sharp, something raw, as if she were struggling to contain the storm inside her. But then she took a breath and spoke, her voice trembling with barely contained emotion. "But you did before she came." She turned her head toward me slowly, like it physically hurt her to look at me. Her gaze was bitter, accusing, as if I was the one who had torn everything apart. And her voice, when it came, was so quiet, so broken. If she was gone, we could be happy again. Daniel staggered back as if she had struck him, the words landing like blows. His face drained of color, and for a moment I thought he might collapse. But I felt something cold and heavy settle in my chest. I couldn't breathe. This was too much. She had taken it this far. I knew what he was thinking. I knew what she had done, and it was more than just betrayal. It was a deliberate, twisted act of cruelty. "You tried to kill me," I said, my voice hoarse. Danielle blinked at me, as if she didn't understand the accusation, as if she had no idea what I meant. Her face was completely blank, her eyes wide and uncomprehending. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Daniel's voice came barely above a whisper, strained and fragile. "Tell me the truth, Danielle. If she never came into my life, what would you have done?" Danielle didn't answer, but the look on her face spoke volumes. Her eyes flitted to the ground, and for the first time I saw something resembling guilt flicker in them. It wasn't enough, though, not after everything. She had never seen me as a person, never seen me as someone with my own desires, my own rights. I had always been just a problem to her, a problem that needed to be removed. Just then, the harsh red and blue lights of police cars flashed down the street, cutting through the night. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was over, for now at least. But Danielle didn't move. She didn't try to run. She just stood there, staring at Daniel, her whole body shaking violently. The officers rushed toward her, their voices firm and commanding. "Ma'am," hands where we can see them. Danielle didn't resist. She didn't fight as they grabbed her arms and began to pull her away. There was no struggle, no desperation in her movements. But before they could take her any farther, she turned her head back to Daniel, her eyes locking with his. Her voice, when she spoke, was barely above a whisper. "I did it for you." The words hit Daniel like a slap, and I saw his face pale further, his eyes narrowing as if they were seeing her for the first time. "You did it for yourself," he whispered harshly. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Danielle looked lost, like she didn't recognize him anymore, like she was finally coming to terms with what she had done, and the awful truth that she had destroyed the only thing she had ever truly wanted to keep. The realization dawned on her too late. They led her away. She didn't look back. She didn't even flinch as they put her in the back of the police car and shut the door behind her. We stayed silent as the officers processed everything, taking our statements, their eyes darting between us like they were trying to understand the depth of what had just unfolded. Daniel barely spoke. His fists were clenched so tightly that his nails had drawn blood, his body tense and rigid with unspoken emotion. The officer who had been leading the investigation finally sighed, looking at us with a grim expression. "She escaped with help from a former employee," he said, his voice cold. "We caught them both. They'll be processed and charged." "How long?" I asked, my voice hollow, barely above a whisper. The officer glanced at me, his eyes reflecting a grim understanding. "It's complicated. She's still being evaluated, but this time there'll be no communication, no letters, no loopholes. She won't be able to reach you ever again." I didn't believe him. Neither did Daniel. But we nodded anyway, as if that was enough. 2 months later, we moved. New city, new house, no forwarding address. Daniel changed his number, cut ties with everyone who might still be connected to Danielle. But even with all precautions, it didn't erase the damage. The wounds were still there, raw and jagged. Even if they weren't visible, Daniel was quieter now, more distant. Sometimes in the dead of night, I'd wake up to find him sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. I could see the anguish in his eyes. I knew what he was thinking. How had he not seen it? How had he not stopped it sooner? One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I spoke up, my voice gentle. "You know it wasn't your fault, right?" Daniel exhaled shakily, his shoulders tense, as if I had asked him to carry the weight of the world. "I should have noticed," he murmured softly, his voice cracking. "I should have seen what she was turning into." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "She made sure you didn't," I said softly, trying to offer him the comfort I knew he so desperately needed, even if he couldn't see it. His fingers curled around mine, but he didn't answer. The silence stretched between us, heavy and thick, before he whispered, "She was my sister." I didn't know what to say to that, because that was the worst part. She had been his sister. She had been family, and she had destroyed everything. Everything they had built together. The love, the trust, the future they had planned. It was all gone, obliterated by the twisted actions of someone he once called family. Months passed, and we tried to move on, try to find some semblance of peace. But one afternoon, a package arrived. No return address, just a plain brown box. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew that, but I did it anyway. Inside, I found a single red ribbon, the kind that could only mean one thing, and a note. I felt my throat close up as I read the words, barely able to breathe. "You can run, but I'll always find you." I froze, my heart racing. My mind reeled. No, this couldn't be happening. Not again. When Daniel came home that evening, he found me sitting on the couch, the note clutched tightly in my trembling hands. He didn't say anything. He just pulled me into his arms, his presence a quiet comfort. Together, we sat in the silence, knowing, deep down, that this nightmare wasn't over, because Danielle was still out there, still waiting, and we had no idea when she would come for us next.